Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is JT, and if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned into the Consequence of Habit podcast. We're just trying to bring light to the power of habits, how they affect us, affect our happiness, affect our success, or our demise, depending on what your habits are. And with that said, I want to give a big shout out to our number one sponsor here at the podcast, and that would be Athletic Brewing Company. I don't know what your habits are, but maybe you find you drink a little too much. If you were like me, or you are like I was, and you like to throw them back a little too much, or you just got something going on that you can't drink alcohol today for whatever your reason is, then I suggest you check out Athletic Brewing Company. These guys are making the finest high-quality craft NA beer on the market, bar none. I'm not quite sure I'm supposed to be praising them that way, but man, I've tried them all. Wow, that's probably not true. I've tried a lot of non-alcoholic beer out there, and I'm here to tell you, you would be hard-pressed to find another one that is as good as these guys. And they're not a one-trick pony. They got every beer they put out is a non-alcoholic beer. So if you're curious, you want to check these guys out, please log on to athleticbrewing.com. Use the promo code capital COH20 and get 20% off your first order. All right, this week to the podcast, we welcome Mr. Jared Shaw. And Jared's story is intense. Addiction had a firm grip around this guy, and it almost cost him his life. But he had this idea while he was in recovery, this idea of a company called Recovery Strong. And he's made it come to reality. He's turned his life around. And in doing so, started a company that's helping other people do the exact same thing. I've said it before. I've got so much respect for somebody that can look at their own life and realize, hey, I got to make a drastic change. And once you've done that, then it's your mission to bring other people with you. Everyone rises. Everyone, you're just throwing out life vests to everybody. Hey, get on board. Jared's going to tell you a story. It wasn't pretty. What addiction was doing to him in his life. Well, it's like I said, it's intense. So I'm going to let him tell the story. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jared Shaw. We're here with Jared Shaw from Recovery Strong. Jared, thanks so much for joining me, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I got told of your story through a mutual friend, and that'd be Taylor Spike. And I saw, when I was doing some research on Taylor before his first time coming on, he's got this kind of iconic picture of him, black and white, and he's standing there. He's got a Recovery Strong T-shirt, and I was like, "What is this Recovery Strong thing about?" And it was, I looked into it a little bit, but I couldn't really get my finger on exactly what you guys were doing. Like, what is this? Is it a T-shirt company? Like, what is the meaning behind it? And it really became apparent. I think you and I might have gone back and forth once or twice through like Instagram. You may not even known who I was at the time. And last time when Taylor just did, or a couple of weeks ago when he did the Cocodona 250, you guys were really involved in that process. And he had mentioned that he'd come down because you're out of Utah, but he'd been there recently and spoke very highly of you. So
he's a liar. No.
Yeah, right. So before we get into your story, just give us a synopsis on what Recovery Strong is and kind of what it stands for.
It's Recovery Strong is just a business I started when I got sober 6 years ago. It's just an idea, and it has to do with, kind of piggybacked on that Live Strong Foundation type thing that Lance was doing, and thought of that name, and nobody owned it. And so I was like 6 months sober. I think I was still in treatment doing outpatient, and I just wanted to start a brand that could get me involved. And that's kind of where it all started. And yeah, it's an awareness brand. It's a lifestyle brand. And it's a project of mine on the side. I'm a contractor by trade. And so that's my full-time gig. And then Recovery Strong is just something we do the longer I stay sober, hopefully the more it'll build, and it helps me stay involved. And so the easiest terms is an awareness brand. We sell clothing, and we donate most of that to sponsor guys, like to help out, go and do things with Taylor and stuff like that. So it's just for fun, but I hope it keeps growing. So that's the plan.
So you're not the first guy that I've spoken to that early on in recovery that they've had this idea of, I don't want to say representing recovery, but making it a big part of their everyday life, not just this kind of personal thing. Because to some people, that's a very personal thing, and they're not, so they're apprehensive about sharing it. And then there's other people that lean into it and go, hey, this is actually part of my identity now. What kind of pressures does that bring, especially early on? Like if where you are now, right? And somebody said, hey, I'm 3 months in. And they said, hey, I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to have it kind of revolve around the concept of being sober and being in recovery. Mm-hmm. Would you tell that person maybe just hold off a little bit, or what's your thoughts on that? 'Cause I imagine that's a lot of pressure at first.
Yeah, I didn't really find it as pressure. It was an idea. And it actually kept it was something that just popped up, and it was something that cultivated my recovery, because I'd been sober. I've gone through treatment before that, a few years before, stayed sober for 18 months, did the AA thing, and and I loved it. And I still am a believer in 12 steps. But when I went through the first time, there wasn't a lot of options, other than AA, but now there's all these other things where that stigma is being broken. And so for people new into recovery, I would share my story and I talk to people at treatment centers, I say, find something that keeps you involved in recovery, outside of AA, go do your meetings, go do what you need to do, but get involved in other ways too. There's sober softball. There's all sorts of stuff now. It's awesome to see that people are connecting in recovery, doing things that aren't just 12-step meetings. So, I would say go for it if you have an idea.
I'm on board with it. That whole aspect of things is changing. I've had lots of people on here, and there was a very rigid way of doing things in the past. And if you deviated from that, well, there was certainly enough people to point that out to you. Like and I think the most important thing is to understand that, like, there's more than, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Matter of fact, I posted somebody, I had sent some Athletic Brewing to somebody else who asked for it. They'd been, I think, sober 12 years, and it was respectful the way that people had responded to it. One of the people was like, "Well, why would you send something like that? That could be," and I get it. I mean, I get what they're saying, but that's those. Well, I can always go back to a time I was in one of the rooms, and I mentioned that I bought Marsala wine for my daughter because she loves chicken Marsala. She was coming home from college or something.
Yeah,
and I was scolded. I was scolded, and I know that person's their heart was in the right place. They want the best for me, but really, what I'm getting around to, this is a long-winded way of saying that yes. Things are changing. There's more than one ways to do things. And am I correct in saying that you've brought part of that lifestyle of recovery into your contracting job and some of the employees that you may or may not have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we use a lot of that. Like my guys, I was upstairs before this, had some stuff, some shirts to ship off, and and I've got guys, we hire guys in recovery. We give guys a second chance that are out of treatment, the 60 days sober, and they can't get a job. We got 3 guys right now in my contracting company that we actually we send a guy to go pick them up in the morning because they don't have a license and they can't get to work. Sometimes we might be enabling, but, there's a little bit of a selfish benefit for that because we do get, guys that we can help with our construction companies. But it's giving a guy a chance is the way we look at it.
Sure.
You know, until he does something that we're not comfortable going pick him up or do this or that for him, then, you know, then we cut that tie. But, yeah, we try and live that lifestyle, and it's cool to have my banners around the shop, you know, my trailer's out front that says fighting addiction, strengthening recovery at my shop. You know, that's the first thing you come in and see it. But, you know, we talk about recovery here. We have guys that don't have the disease of addiction, you know, that can have a beer on a Friday night. And my best friend who works for me is one of those guys, you know, and then I just always thought it was weird that he can have one and be done, you know, or I like, why even have one, you know? So yeah, we try to breathe that lifestyle, honesty, hard work, discipline into our company. So, and give a guy a chance too. And the guy that runs my crews right now, he is just picked up 5 years sober. He was in prison 5 years ago, didn't have a license, rode his bike to the bus station, got on a bus, got off the bus, rode his bike to the shop. He did anything necessary to stay sober. And today he's one of my best employees, just bought a house this year, had a baby. We got a brand new company truck this year. So, that's a quick turnaround from prison to where he's at today. Yeah, and so, and because of recovery, not because of me, it's because he's willing to do the work. Yeah. So,
well, I would push back on that enough to say that a lot of times it's that opportunity to do something. Yeah. I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole of the shame and all of that goes around with addiction and not liking, that stuff out there. And once it is out, especially when there's a punitive response to something you've done because of addiction, man, those chances to just change yourself, become a better version of yourself, and that's sometimes what just people honestly need. I mean, you're living proof of it, right? I mean, let's.
Well, and he inspires me too. My employee, a lot of guys do. That's why it's cool being asked to do stuff like this, is because I can get lost in the other side, real life, let's say it's the other side of life, business, all that obligation, but then sitting down, taking an hour to do this podcast gets my mind back into what it was like, where I'm at, and this is what keeps me able to be a functioning member of society. So, it's cool to slow down and do this kind of stuff. So,
no one will have, and maybe that's not fair to say, few people will have the empathy, to be able to look at people and have the empathy to go, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. And then there is light on the other side. We've had a couple conversations, one conversation leading up to this, and I said it right before this thing started. There's a lot of people where the world of recovery is a very personal thing. And then there's other people, and this isn't to say that they're, one is good and the other one's not, but there's other people that bring people along with them. They you know what I mean? Like they rally other people and together they rise up. And I mean, it's almost like taking what you do in the rooms and then adding it into the rest of your entire life to include where you work. And it's a legit logo. Yeah, you guys' logo is awesome. Right?
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, logo looks awesome. So, Jared, let's get into your story, man. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about. Pick up wherever you want, man. Start from.
I'm a grateful recovering addict. Started using drugs when I was in high school, mostly pills. I'm an opiate guy. Opiates and alcohol are my thing. Because of sports injuries and stuff like that. Had a tough life. I was raised LDS, so I'm Mormon, but a Mormon who drinks in Utah. Talk about the person that was shaming you for buying wine. Sure. Imagine being a Mormon buying alcohol. But, and so there's a lot of shame in that when you're in this area, this culture. But I found to accept that now, and I don't go to church anymore, but I'm still Mormon. Sure. And I'm glad that I can bring this side out, the honest truth of, hey, I struggled with addiction and stuff like that. But, I'm just a normal guy who I'm about the third oldest of 6 people in our family. Wow. So we got a big family. I'm the only one that suffers with the disease of addiction. Got 2 brothers and 3 sisters. And yeah, so, just used Oxycontin right out of high school. It was back in 2000, early 2000. That was my thing. And then that's when I started my construction company too, where I wanted to make more money. And so Oxycontin kind of drove me to be productive and get out of bed and go work, and so that's where it all started. And then I lost it pretty much. Went to rehab twice. And the last time I went to rehab, 6 years ago, I wasn't doing Oxycontin at that time. I was doing more Lortabs, and doing bottles at a time, I couldn't take enough to get me right. I'd take a whole bottle in one swallow with 30 to 40, 50 pills.
Wow.
And it just didn't work anymore, and finally, this is just a real short version of where I was at. Just got tired of waking up every day trying to find drugs, just got tired. I had a couple employees at that time. They'd be at the shop getting ready to go to work, and I'd be in bed answering phone calls, waiting for my dealer to finally say, hey, I got you some, or you can come get some at 9 o'clock. And once that happened, I could go to work and, feel okay for a minute.
Yeah.
And then, life was just a mess. I was a mess. Couldn't function. Like I said, just slowly killing myself with Tylenol and opioids and alcohol, and had enough. But I never went to jail, never went to prison, never, that kind of stuff. Just had a spiritual, physical, emotional bottom. And I got done, I was just done one day and checked myself into outpatient treatment, and I'd been through inpatient up in Park City for 60 days back when I first went to, learned about recovery. And that was when I was 22 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Learned about AA, learned about the steps, learned about the disease of addiction, which I think it's a disease. My brain, nobody does what they do unless you've experienced addiction. You get it. I make choices that I normally wouldn't make if I put chemicals in my body,
Sure.
And so I learned about that. I learned about hope, learned about change. And so the second time I knew that there was some sort of light. And when I went to treatment the second time, I was like, okay, I've only got one more chance, I think, because if I don't, I'll die.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that today. If I go back out, I probably won't make it back.
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to, and this isn't me being distracted here. I talked to somebody else that was in Utah, and I'm curious if do you know Robert Eastman?
I do. He's just down the road from me. Yes, I know Robert. He went to the same treatment center as I did. And and so I did 75 hard with his gym.
Okay,
when we talked about 75 hard, it was because of his gym. They were doing it. And so I called him. I said, hey, I need to join you guys on this because I need to be held accountable. So I know Robert Eastman very well. So
small world, man.
Yep.
Utah,
he's a stud. He's intense.
Yeah,
he's intense.
He seems it.
He's gonna call me after this, be like, dude, I heard you're slacking. You better get your shit together. So
I think he's getting ready to do the 75 hard again.
He's doing another program. So we did that 75 hard with him, and then I don't know if he's doing some sort of program with this gym. I know that he's doing stuff, but he's pushing people, he's motivating people. That's for sure. Yeah. So that's what's awesome about it. So
and who's it? Is it Blue? The other guy that's
Blue Robinson is the addict to athlete coach. So you got them. You got another gym. I don't know if you've heard of Fit to Recover.
I have heard of
it. Ian Acker. And going back to the story of Recovery Strong, the reason I started Recovery Strong was because I watched Ian Acker build Fit to Recover on Facebook when I was using. I'd get on Facebook and look at this cool community out doing group workouts at a park downtown Salt Lake City. And I'm high as a kite or withdrawn. And I'm like, I want to be there, but shame, drug addiction kept me at home in my basement, locked up. And so as soon as I got out, he was the first person that when I thought of Recovery Strong, I actually called him up and said, hey, I want to talk to you. I got an idea. And my words were, I don't want to compete. I just love what you're doing and I want to help, So, and gained mutual respect from him since that day, and we're really good friends. So yeah.
I tell you what, man, you guys out in Utah are doing recovery right. You guys are doing recovery right.
It's fun because now the Instagram, you can see guys doing it out, all over. It's these small little gyms, and that's where it starts with. It's not the Gold's Gym that needs to, it's all these little groups that get together, and then those little groups multiply, and and like I said, me and Taylor are hanging out running together. Look at me and you talking now. It's really cool, thanks to technology and social media.
Yeah, right. So, right. It's actually being used in a way that's productive instead of watching TikTok videos all day or something. But
yeah, no kidding. I'm not very good at social media. That's my one downfall, is I am not that great at it because I don't know, a lot of nonsense.
It's a good thing, because honestly, for a lot of people, that ties right into that same little dopamine hits that keeps you distracted from that stillness in your brain and keeps people looking for something, but have you mentioned you're the only one in your family that has the disease. Can you trace back to even being a kid and go, oh yeah, there's a lot of signs that I was different, or once I found something that felt good, I was all in on it?
Yeah, well, that happened when I took my first lower tab when I was a sophomore in high school. I took one, my mom had some in her cabinet. I had a headache, and I, innocently said, take for pain, and I took one, and I remember that feeling just being, this is awesome. But I didn't know what it was. Honestly, it wasn't like I was searching for a high. I just felt good. And I didn't know until I was later on in life that was like a sense of relief that I was looking for, like from stress of life, fear, anxiety, and stuff. It took me a while to figure that out, but now looking back, that feeling was what I was chasing the whole time. Like if I could feel like that kid at high school on the top, I was building the portable for the carpentry class, that feeling of just like everything's okay, that. If I could have that feeling all the time, oh man, my life would be awesome. Yeah. So so I searched for it, not knowing at first, but then as I learned more about it and bigger and heavier drugs came in, like I kept searching for that feeling, so. But
you mentioned, hey, I've never been arrested and all of these other things. I think it's important that, because people that don't know the world of recovery, they don't understand that, there's always that, hey, you got to hit rock bottom. You're going to have to go through these things. And there's a lot of people that make changes and are so freaking lucky. Really, it comes down to luck that all of those other consequences didn't happen because of their addiction. And I think it's really important too that when you're doing something, like you were doing it for you. You were doing it for, okay, I've got this business, and I don't know at the time if you're married, kids, or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it's there's something to be said when you see that. It's like a train wreck in slow motion, but you actually make a change and do something about it. I mean, Taylor kind of did the same thing, but other than just feeling tired, how long was the process before your first time of going to recovery? You were like, I can't live like this my entire life. How long did that process take for when things started getting really bad to before you actually started going out, reaching out for help?
Well, like I said, when I went to treatment the first time at 22, 23 years old, I enjoyed it. It gave me like the 12-step rooms, AA, it gave me a purpose again. It made me feel I found something where I belong again, that kind of wore off, and I was young. I honestly attribute it to, progressive disease, but immaturity too. I just wanted to, I had a little more partying to do, so when I went back out and did some more partying, I think the second time around was, luck. I don't know why I didn't go to jail, because I remember one time I was downtown Ogden, and I just bought a bunch of pills and going down this main drag, and a cop pulled out behind me, and I was like, dude, I'm going to jail. I'm going to prison. Yeah. And he got behind me, and then he changed lanes and went right in front of me. And I just was, I was sure that was the time where I'm going to be going to jail. and it didn't happen. And so I think just all these small instances where I knew that the Tylenol thing, I used to, when I stopped doing Oxycontin, when I went back out, I started doing more Lortabs, and Lortab has all that Tylenol in it. That was easier to get. And so I'd be taking like 30 to 40 to 50 Lortabs at a time with all that Tylenol, and just waiting for my liver. I'd be Googling like how many milligrams of Tylenol or acetaminophen can I have in my body before it's toxic, and I'm like 50 times the limit almost.
Sure.
And I remember one instance, I couldn't get Lortab 10s. I had to get the smaller dose, the Lortab 5s. And so that meant I had to take double the amount of Tylenol to feel all right. And I remember I was out on a job site and I just started puking bile, got really tired, and I went to my grandma's house, who was down the road from me, and just laid down after I puked. I've never puked bile before, green, and I got really scared. And so I laid down, fell asleep for a few hours, and then I woke back up feeling really sick, and finally Googled poison control. And I told them how much I'd taken, and they said, hey, you need to get to an emergency room right now. And so this is after I'd been sober for a while, so I couldn't tell my family that I was struggling again, is what I thought. And so I'm trying to hide all this, driving myself to the emergency room, pretty much like thinking I'm going to die, and go into the hospital. They check me in. The nurse is in there. I'm crying, praying to God that give me one more chance. Don't let my liver fail. And the nurse is talking to me like, hey, this is what happens if your liver goes into failure. You got to get life flighted down to the U. You got to get on a waiting list, all this stuff. You got to be sober for 6 months. Anyway, and I'm just bawling. She leaves the room and I'm praying. And then the doctor comes back and he's like, hey, you have no Tylenol in your system. You either metabolize it really well or you got sold fake drugs. And I said, well, I know I felt the same way when I took them. It wasn't I know what the feeling is when you get high, and I know it wasn't always perfect, but that time my brain told me, dude, you metabolize Tylenol really well. Like I walked out of that hospital, called my dealer and bought more pills, that was 1 minute crying and praying, never going to do this again, to, hey, you got an awesome liver. It's go time, like that's how warped my thinking was. And so, but then after that, it did scare me enough that I actually would go in and get my liver checked every so often. I was Googling YouTube videos on how to release the Tylenol it was bad. Like looking back, I feel stupid because I'm not going to tell you the stuff I was doing to try and get the Tylenol out. There's videos and it's just crazy, but I was sick. I was a sick mental dude that just, killing himself. So,
yeah,
but
and I think your openness to even talk about that stuff, that's where the power is, man. That's where, because listen, there's a reason there's videos on how to get Tylenol out of your liver, right? Yeah. So if people are open enough to go ahead and post those, then you certainly need people that have lived through it and, can say, hey, this is what I did. We're no different. I was just gripped by this disease, and this is how insane it made me.
I didn't want to die, but I was killing myself. So that's kind of where I was at. I was trying to do the safest way of not killing myself, yet killing myself, I wanted to be safe. Yeah. So, and I think about the videos I used to watch on YouTube, and it's like, oh, these guys, they're so smart. Now I want to talk to them like, dude, are you guys, I wonder if they found recovery, did they die like most people do, or in prison, or did they have my story where they had enough, and they feel bad that they posted this video online that, showed you how to use a drug a certain way. I don't know. It's going down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So
you mentioned that you couldn't, or at least thought you couldn't tell your family.
Yeah.
And I think it's another thing to talk about is just because you put the stake in the ground that says I'm sober, I'm clean. It doesn't mean that this disease goes away. Other things won't happen. And I think this message probably goes out more to family members, that it is a disease and people are going to mess up, and there has to be that open door that to come back to reach for help. Cause you know, I'm trying to talk to people about, and this is just within a professional workforce. Like, hey, you gotta be open to people coming to you and saying this, because otherwise they're not going to come to you. And when you push these things back, the further you go, the worse the consequences are going to be. I mean, you can only YouTube how to get Tylenol out of your liver for so long, right? Like things go bad at some point. What was that conversation like for you, and how receptive was your family to it?
You know, my family, the openness, being able, because when like I said, they loved that I got sober. They, you know, I take it as the analogy of, let's fix Jared, you know, send him to the auto mechanic, get him fixed, bring him back, and he's good, you know, like little do they know there's a little bit more family dynamic than that, you know, with alcoholism and the disease model and all that stuff, you know, like they got some stuff they can work on too, you know, let's just say that.
Everybody does,
but it's easy to pinpoint it on me because I have a problem that's very, you know, it destroys my life very quickly. So when I got sober, it was the best thing that ever happened to our family. You know, they pinned my success on themselves. They wore it with pride. And so, you know, it's like winning a high school national or a high school championship, you know, you're riding those coattails, and then if they lose, you're like, So I felt that shame, but I know that they would have loved me anyway. But when I went back, checked myself into treatment the second time, I still was not really forthcoming to everybody. And I didn't really care at that point. It was more about me. I wasn't trying to please them. At this point, I wasn't trying to hide them from them. I just was like, I don't care. I'm going to do this for me. And if they ask, I'll be honest, but I just didn't care for their approval anymore, you know? And I think that's when healing became, I guess, more resolved, because it was for me. It wasn't for everybody else. So, and I found some peace finally again. So
there's some liberation to that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would imagine some buy-in and ownership that of your own recovery that wouldn't come along as if you're doing it for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think that, once again, going back to, I was a little bit older. I think something happened in my brain. Well, I know something happened in my brain, and they call it a psychic change, you know, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had something click in the first 30 days of recovery that just changed my life, and I never wanted to go back. You know, a beer sounds nice, you know, like you're up doing that Coca-Cola 250, and at the end they're having a beer at the finish line, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool to do. But if I do that, I have to rewind and go all the way to the start of that race and be like, I wouldn't be here if I was drinking.
Yes.
You know, I got to have all these experience because I've chosen to choose recovery, you know, and like running with Taylor, it was just going back to 75 hard, being able to even run that 40 miles that I did over the 3-day period. It was just the fact that I put in some work and I started running, and I got sober, and I met him. You know, there's just so many different cogs in this wheel that make my life so full now. And it's awesome. Like, I didn't know Taylor 2 years ago, you know, and then I had the most wonderful experience with him in Arizona, you know, for 5 days. Yeah. So it was a beautiful experience. It's just spiritual, everything. It was amazing.
It's bigger.
So,
right. It's my experience with it, anything that makes you feel good short term, probably doesn't have a real long shelf life. Yeah. And there's connections I think you speak about, even like your experiences with Taylor, or the change in your brain through the second time you went through recovery, that brings a sense of self-pride that few things ever will. That certainly than something I had experienced before that, because there was just always, even when I did something I was super proud of, and it could be something physical, like I was always working out even when I was drinking, but there was always this kind of overlooming thing, like, man, I just can't stop doing this though. Like, this isn't healthy. You know, even the insanity of, like, to say that, hey, and this is nothing towards you, but this is what you'll go to. You'll go through the maintenance of going to get your liver checked. You'll go to a hospital for health reasons to get a liver check. Yet this is the thing that, and I think the important thing to point out of that is just that's the extent that people will go to.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah, I was insane. But yeah, I was insane
I mean,
doing the
and this
things I was
isn't that,
doing.
and that's not just you. That's anyone. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
that's all kinds of different people.
Mm.
Hey, let's talk about the Cocodona 250,
Okay.
because anyone who's followed that, which was a lot of people who
Mhm.
followed that as you guys were running along, um, it was unbelievably inspiring, amazing even to sit back and virtually watch.
Mhm.
Um, what is your account as someone who kind of went through that process and saw it go down? You know,
Yeah.
I had Taylor on beforehand, and in retrospect, I'm like, dude, what am I doing? I should have talked to him after. I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, but what was your experience to be even involved in that?
Well, let's go back to Rob Eastman and 75 hard.
Sure.
You know, the gym, it all is getting sober, but let's just start at January 4th when I started 75 hard, that Andy Frisella program with Rob Eastman's gym,
Yep.
Eastman Fitness. And I weighed 217 pounds at the time.
Right.
You know, just I can go get on a bike and I can go run, but I just wasn't healthy. You know, like
Yeah.
I just wasn't healthy. And so we started doing that program and started doing more trail running. And that program, you got to work out twice a day for 45 minutes. And I decided to start running during one of those workouts. So, you know, I'd run 2 miles and I'd be slow. In the winter, you know, you got to run no matter what, you got to do it. You know, if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's, we had a mild winter here this time of year, or this year in Utah. And that was made it a lot easier, but there were nights where I was out running in the snow, you know, before midnight to get my workout in. But 2 miles slowly became 3 miles and 4 miles. And so the people that are going to listen to this, I was not a runner January 1st of the year in 2021. So I just decided to do some simple things, work out, joined that fitness program. Fast forward to met Taylor down in St. George. He was doing just by happenstance, he was down doing rim to rim to rim in Grand Canyon. I was down there. He saw one of my posts when I was trail running in St. George, Utah. He was in the area and he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, let's meet up." And so I met up with him. We went and ran 7 miles, and I was so nervous. Actually, I wasn't going to run with him because it's Taylor Spike. He runs ultra marathons.
Right.
I'm just I barely run. And
Right.
so, but there was a trail there that was 7 miles called Zen Trail that I'd posted the day before, and he saw it on my story. And he said, "Hey, let's meet up at that trailhead and we can say hi, you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go down there." So finally we were talking, hanging out, talking about Cocodona and how we're going to go about it. And finally just something in me said, "Hey, do you want to go on a run?" You know, like I'm the one who reached out, said, you know, "Hey, let's go on a run." He said, "Yeah, let's do it." And so that right there, we ran, had fun, you know, went and did 7 miles again. And that was long for me. 7 miles is long to me at that time too. And so it was fun because we got to chat for 2 hours and hang out. And then come 3 weeks later, we're down in Arizona doing Cocodona 250 with him. And we just went down there to support him. We had no idea what our function was going to be with him. We didn't know if he even wanted us to run, if he, you know, we had no idea. We had no expectations. We just went down there, me and my buddy Adam, and Adam's a pretty big runner, marathon guy. And so he's experienced and, you know, and so we're just along for the ride. And then to meet Taylor at mile 75 up in the mountains. He's already done 70 something miles. What is it? 71.4. I got the aid station numbers right here. He already has 71.4 miles in, and it's at 2 a.m. up in the middle of this Arizona forest that's cold. And Adam's like, "Hey, I'll go run with him this next leg." And it was like an 8-mile leg.
Mm-hmm.
So he ran for the first section with him. And, you know, and so right then it was like, okay, cool. So I'm still like, okay, what's my involvement now? I'm not a runner, I tell myself.
Yeah.
And so the next aid station is 7 miles away, 5 a.m. in the morning. It's called Whiskey Row, believe it or not, down in downtown. It's all the bars in downtown Prescott. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to go run with Taylor." And it's a 14-mile leg, this next run. And so, and I'd ran 2 half marathons since, you know, I started running in January. So I knew I could get that far.
Sure.
but I was nervous for the rest of the weekend, looking at all the legs. And so we ran 14 miles together, beautiful country. And then just, we became more involved, and then we noticed that Taylor wanted us to be there. It was good conversation. His wife was letting us know, like, his dad was there, and his dad was just, we're so grateful for you guys being here. And, and then as it slowly went on through the next night, I'm super tired, and so I did a total of 40 miles or 39 or something. Adam did 60 with him. But the cool experience was Adam went and did a 20-mile leg with him at mile 200. And that's when Taylor hit a pretty bad low. They had to sit he wanted to quit, and hopefully Taylor doesn't get mad at me, but I think we're being honest here, is he had that, he was ready. He was done. And Adam was texting me like he wants to quit. And Adam he's done Ironmans and stuff like that. So he knows that mental, get through that part of it. Let's keep moving. You can make that decision at the next aid station, because they're 7 miles away from an aid station.
Right.
So he's just like, hey, Taylor, let's keep moving. It was cold, 20 miles took him a long time. They were walking basically this time. And so he got to that next aid station, and then he took a nap for 3 to 4 hours. And then that's when I ran. And that was so he's at 204 miles, and I ran another 14 miles with him after that, and that was the day that he finished. So that was early morning on Thursday morning. And he was really tired at first, but I could see like the light coming back into him as we were running. He started talking more. He called his wife, FaceTimed her, and just, just a fun experience, but to experience some of the highs and the lows. And then I'm pushing myself too, mind you. That was my Cocodona. They're doing 40 miles. Like, my legs were tired.
I'm sure.
So, and I was nervous because I didn't want to go get him into trouble. Hey, I'm going to go pace you on this leg and then have me have some sort of issue, because, it was out of my comfort zone doing this stuff physically. But, and then we got to the last aid station, and his dad wanted to finish with him. And so that was a cool thing to be there at the finish line, watching him and his dad come in. And, it was beautiful. Like, to see where he was at, see him at his highs, experience some of his lows. I wasn't with him on all of them, but just to see him come through, and, he's good old Taylor just smiling and laughing at the end. And, it was beautiful. So, yeah.
What a cool.
And at that point I realized we were beneficial, I know why we came at that point. It wasn't just for him. It was for me too, like, to experience it. 'Cause it was just amazing. And, coming from a runner, going to one of those things, it was awesome. So, but yeah.
So, I wondered the same thing. What's going on the trail? That's just a lot of time to pass. What kind of conversations are you having? Not everything is going to be this deep conversation. It's just going to be a lot of nonsense at the same time.
Well, him, Adam and him, when I ran my first leg with him, we're going probably 12-minute miles, not super fast, but we're moving through hills and stuff. And he's talking to me, and I'm breathing. I'm like, Taylor, shut up. I don't want to talk. I got to keep up with you for 14 miles. So, but yeah, the conversations changed at different times, and then we found out, when I was actually in Flagstaff, I found out my friend had died when they were going through the night. And so I text Adam and told him that our friend Charlie had died that night from an overdose, is what I'm suspecting. I don't know the exact, he was alone in Vegas, and, really good childhood friend of ours. And, but I found out that night, and, Taylor, go back and check out Taylor's posts. He'll read about, there's some posts about it in his Instagram feed about, who had it harder that night, and definitely there's two different types of hard, obviously there are two different types of hard. I don't think we had it any harder than him by any means, but it was cool the next day to go talk to him a little bit about that. And then that's when we're lucky we get to do this type stuff comes out. We're lucky we're breathing. Life isn't so bad. You got to slow down and enjoy it. We're still out here doing fun stuff. But yeah, so the funniest thing that happened, we're running at night outside of going towards Sedona, and this was mile 130. I'd heard of ultra runners that just sleep on the trail, for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So we're running with our headlamps, and all of a sudden Taylor's like, I got to sleep. So I'm like, all right, where? It's dirt. We're in the desert. And turns off his headlamp, falls right on the trail, right off the trail, curls up in fetal position. And I'm just sitting there with my headlamp on looking at the stars. And I just remember I was laughing inside because I'm looking at this dude that's just laying, like, this is what I used to see down at homeless shelters and stuff like that. But he set his alarm for 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, and I'm praying, I'm actually out there. I turn my light off. I'm looking at the stars in Arizona and just like enjoying every minute of this experience, because I didn't know what the next turn was going to be. Like I really had no expectations, but I just was like, this is amazing that I'm out here even doing this.
Yeah.
5 minutes goes off. His alarm goes off. All right, let's go. And I'm just like, I would have never woke up.
I would never.
So, yeah. So just those little things, it's unreal to me that somebody can lay on the dirt and sleep. But I guess if you're that tired, you do. So I went to hotel rooms and slept.
Yeah. So I think I would always be, because like you said, that's a lot of miles for you to run. And I said to you on our phone conversation, I'm like, God, man, don't get me wrong. 250 doesn't even sound like a human can do it. Right. But if you said to me, hey, you got to run 40 miles over the next, 3 days?
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that's going to be really painful. But if you're running with a guy who's doing 250, the last thing you can do is tell him you're tired.
Yeah. I know. Right? Believe me. Actually, I was very honest. I'm like, Taylor, I'm not built for this, so don't expect me to carry you. So,
yeah, right.
But right. I was joking with him. But yeah, to see him to hear about him and Cam doing Moab 240, a couple of years ago, I'd never even heard of Moab 240. And I'm like, people run 200. I thought riding a bike 200 miles, doing the bike races that I did was like kind of the pinnacle of like fitness. And then I hear people run all through the night and do 200 plus miles on their feet. And then to see somebody do 257 miles on their feet through 3 nights, I'm just like, these guys are insane.
Yeah,
it's mental toughness, and it's just insane. It was really cool. I'm very grateful for that whole experience. I've got it. I journaled about it, wrote about it. And I got to always hold on to that memory. And so,
but I mean, I would, it's gotta be a life-changing experience. I mean, I remember he had even tagged me on like a post, from like Tahoe or something like that. And this, this isn't just like, let's hype Taylor's Spike, but it was, he was in a tough place. And I just thought like, what an amazing thing to even be like, just this tiny fraction to be part of. So, what do you think the connection is between people that suffer with addiction and then go on to do some pretty gnarly physical activities? So, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, clearly there's a decent amount in Utah.
We got our fair share over here.
Right. What do you think that connection is?
I just think it's finding purpose, like you've been so far down the other side of slowly dying or fastly dying, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
You've been down that scale and the pendulum wants to swing the other way. How much more I'm going to be 40 this year. I used a good, the first 15 years of my life in a buzz or, like in a faded state. And now I get to experience the next 40 years in a different state if I choose to, if I allow myself to. And I'm in better health today at 40, turning 40 this year than I've ever been in my life, mentally, physically. But like I said, I just think that going down the scale one way, it comes back the other way, and you find a way to live, and you're grateful for it. It's like the person who, I've never had cancer, but I can only assume the people that have seen that their life can be taken from them very quickly and very easily makes you want to live every moment of it better or be a better person, and it's not just about going and having fun every day. It's really like, how can I help the world be a better place, and then we get to do fun things like go do races and stuff like that. But it does start with just being able to I try and open doors for people, you know, just those small little things where I'm thinking about somebody else other than myself for just one split second. If I can do that, then I get to go run. I get to go do other things and have fun, you know? So
I've had a lot of conversations about that, and the process of not making it about you.
mm,
Well, here's a great example. I don't know if it's a great example. But here's an example. I sent an email connecting two people. I had a guest on recently, and he was very candid about some things he had suffered with, and this was on the mental health side. And I received an email from somebody else that, hey, is it possible to connect me with this guy? And I did, and it was this heartfelt email from one guy to another of talking about some of the biggest battles this person's ever been through.
yeah.
And it wasn't to me, literally was not to me. And Jerry brought tears to my eyes. Like, to even be part of this thing, to see it pass through is selfishly I felt amazing. So my experiences have been when if I start concentrating on me, then then things don't always, I don't feel that great. But when you start making about other people, but I have to fight that, like, because I'm selfish. You know what I mean?
Me too.
And I'll forget it. And I think surrounding yourself, just like I'm going to guess you surrounded yourself a lot of times with other people that were doing the same, not dysfunctional, but abusive, self-harm things. I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, we surround ourselves. When you change that and now you're out running with somebody 250 miles and they're rocking Recovery Strong.
Yeah.
You've got a company that's helping people have a second chance, get back to that same word that you mentioned of purpose. Dude, it's the most selfless and selfish thing I think you can possibly do at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Oh, for sure it does. You know, like, yeah, for sure. I love seeing Taylor wear my stuff, you know, because it's something that I believe in, I love, you know, but then again, Taylor's very gracious about what we do for him. And I'm like, dude, you don't have to thank me. Like, I owe you, you know, like for letting us enjoy this experience. You know, I don't feel like it's a business transaction at all. I feel like it's a friendship, and it's like I said, two guys in recovery that have battled some demons that are going out to live life to the fullest for a weekend. You know, it's a guy's trip basically. And, you know, so, but yeah, it's get out of your own way is what, you know, let other people in, and, you know, and just, he's been saying it on his Instagram a little bit more, recover out loud.
Yeah. He's been a lot more vocal about it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a perspective of how you look at life. And you just said before, I was in Arizona, it's in the middle of the night. Taylor's curled up like a homeless dude on the side of the trail. And it's very easy to feel sorry for ourselves sometimes. I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it. Do you have to fight that sometimes, or is your perspective really changed over the past couple of years where you find the joy in things that maybe before it could have been a reason to not be happy or feel sorry for yourself?
You know, that night sitting there in Arizona, there was no possible way for me not to be happy and joyful of my experience, you know, like just turning my lamp off. Well, the reason I turned my lamp off is because bugs started floating around my headlamp. And so I turned it off, and all of a sudden all the stars appeared. And I'm just sitting there in this quiet, beautiful Arizona desert with a buddy. And like, I'm just like, look at where I'm at. I would have never have thought 6 years ago I would be here in Arizona. I thought I'd be dead, you know? So to have that perspective of, look at this, we're living life, we're doing fun. And I'm able to come out here and do this is a whole other thing. We're lucky because not a lot of people get to go do that even in recovery. You know, there's guys that are in recovery that it's the hardest thing to even stay in recovery because one, financially, they don't have the funds, you know, they've lost their felons, they can't get jobs, you know, so there's definitely, it's not all puppies and rainbows in recovery for a lot of people, but granted, for me, it's been really awesome, and I just want to reciprocate that in some way, and and sharing my experience, strength, and hope with others, making them feel gratitude and helping them feel gratitude and recognize where they were at and where they can be. There's no ceiling for people in recovery.
Yeah.
My pinnacle of success right now, like I'm where I want to be because I'm happy. I have a job, I have my license, and I get to do this kind of stuff, but I wonder what the next 10 years will bring. Who knows? I'm just grateful I get to be a part of it. So, and things could get ripped out from under me, the economy last year, or, COVID. Who knows what next year is going to bring for anybody? I'm an optimist, so I'm hoping it's pretty good. Yeah, but you never know. Yeah. So that's why today's the only thing that matters. And I got to wake up tomorrow. I got to make some choices, and if I make the right choices, I get to go to bed sober again. Mm-hmm. That's all we got to do. Yeah. So, but
awesome. Yeah. So there's these weird circles of connections. The fact we're sitting here, the fact that you meet Taylor, you're rocking a Mountain Ops shirt right now.
Yeah.
Taylor's family, his brother's involved with the Mountain Ops guys, and dude, explain that crazy circle.
Well, my youngest brother is Mountain Ops web designer.
Okay.
And so the owners of Mountain Ops are high school friends. So they went to the same high school as us, and we know them. And the whole circle was, I went down to a hunting show where Cam was down there, took a shirt down that said, this is when Recovery Strong just barely started, had my first shirt made. And I didn't even know who Cam was really. Honestly, I had no idea who he was. And so other than he was the first Under Armour sponsored athlete. I think that's all I remember. I had no idea he was a big bow hunter, but I just took a shirt down and just, for some reason, just felt like I should give it to him and meet him. My brother took me up through there's a meet and greet, and my brother said, hey, yeah, let's just go up to the front. I'll get you up there and you can give it to him. And he took me up front. I just said, hey, I got a picture of us, and I'm pretty heavy at that point as well at that time. And I just said, hey, I'm Jared with Recovery Strong. I try and help recovering addicts, and just handed him a shirt, and he took a picture of it with us. And then the next day he's out running in it and he's posting stuff about it. And so something happened in that conversation, that 2-second conversation in a photo that he ran with for a few days, and started posting stuff. And I just think that's what helped me and Taylor connect because of Cam's social media presence. That week was crazy how many people reached out to me, and I'm like 2 years sober, 3 years sober. People are asking me how to get sober. And I'm like, I don't, my DMs were just blowing up. And I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I tried to answer everybody and I probably failed a lot of people at that time. I was overwhelmed a little bit by it. But, and then slowly, like Taylor started posting stuff, like tagging me in photos, and I had no idea it was Cam's brother, And so it was just kind of cool to go from meeting Cam for a little bit and doing some runs like his 5Ks, and then learning about Taylor. And now my nephew was out at Cam's gym. He's the photographer for Mountain Ops now. Okay. And so it's just cool because I feel like we're family now, and he knows all my family knows him.
It's wild.
Me and Taylor are the recovering addicts of the family, so it's just fun. And it's just, I don't know. I've fallen in love with Taylor just because, let's just be honest, Cam has the spotlight on him.
Yeah.
I have an older brother who has the spotlight on him. He was always the best soccer player. He was always that person. So I know what it's like. Not saying Taylor feels this way at all, but I know what it's like to live in a shadow. And so maybe that's a shadow of, being a celebrity, Instagram influencer. I don't know, but maybe Taylor might call me and be like, no, I don't feel that at all. But, but I know what it's like for my brother because he was always the one that got all the attention.
Yeah.
So, so it's cool to be able to put that aside and just be like, hey, dude, this guy's awesome, and get to know him. And there's no ulterior motive behind it.
Well,
it's just.
When I was trying to get Taylor to come on the podcast the first time, he's like, hey, I just have to make sure this is there's like a mutual benefit in this. And I could be wrong. I almost, looking back at it, it was almost like, hey, dude, you're not trying to get just get me on there because of who my brother was. And full transparency, I had no freaking clue who his brother was. So literally no clue.
Yeah, Taylor's probably gonna be mad at me. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm just, whatever. If it's not, I know."
Both of us are probably way off in left field and have no idea.
Yeah, he's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" But no, and it's just been cool because when you look at it, Cam at that time had a few 100,000 followers. Now he's got 1 million.
Yeah.
Now he's got, it got me connected with Natalie Eva Marie, who's a WWE wrestler. We put a package together for her. She lives in California. We were able to put a package together for her 8 years sobriety in March. She got 8 years sober. WWE star. If you don't follow her, she's got 4 million followers on Instagram.
Wow.
She's an advocate of recovery. And so it was so awesome to send her a package with some stuff from Cameron Haynes, from us at Recovery Strong, which I include Taylor in that, as far as being involved in Recovery Strong. That's for me and Taylor. And, some other stuff that we own some companies in, but anyway, just to send it to her, and then she's wearing it, talking about recovery, and that's what it's all about. Nobody could know that I own Recovery Strong, and I'd be okay with it.
Sure.
Just as long as the brand is out there and it's inspiring people to live recovery strong.
Yeah.
That's the simple as that. So, but it is humbling to think this lady that wrestled for WWE is wearing my stuff, and she's beautiful, go follow her. But to see her in my clothes, it's like, oh my gosh, it's humbling. It's really cool.
Dude, a concept that you came in 3 months into recovery and to see that seed grow. Dude, it's beautiful. Honestly, it really is. And for me, just as much, is the fact that what you're doing, you're not just selling or giving away T-shirts. What you're doing with your company too, and giving people that those second chances, to me it's not done enough anymore. Let me say anymore, like I know how it was done before, but it's just not done very much at all. And there's. I think not many people quite understand, and when we talked about empathy before, of what it would feel like to be that person and need that little bit to feel that sense of pride and to be able to look in the mirror and know that you're doing the right thing. And who knows where that goes to. Like you said, you got a guy who's been sober and just got a new company truck and bought a house. And can you imagine what that guy, not in a million years would he think that's what his life would be when he's at his lowest of lows. So it's beautiful. So what's next for Recovery Strong? Do you have any?
We got some cool ideas. I'm not going to share them on the podcast today, but we'll come back and share. Sure. No, we got some ideas. We got a lot of stuff. Like I said, it's a never ending brand that we're trying to do things that can help, and I would love for it to be my job full time one day, where I can do it and I can really put in all my time and effort. But for now, we've got some cool stuff, and we're going to put together some races, I think is what our plan is, just to try and help bring out awareness and, living life in recovery. And so there's a lot of cool things coming up, but man, we're still working on some stuff.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, when they start to come to fruition, dude, get back here. And this will always be a platform for you to come on here and promote it as much as possible. So, and if somebody wants to rock some gear, where do they go to get their Recovery Strong stuff?
recoverystrong.com is where they would go. Okay. So that's where you can go online and look at all the gear. And like I said, we try and give that. I mean, we don't. It's not a nonprofit. So people get confused. They think I'm a nonprofit. I'm not. I haven't decided if we're going to go that route or not. But definitely, you can be assured we use those funds to go do good. Just one example is we paid for a guy to get into detox. It's because he didn't have the money, the $700 to go get, and he's he's doing well today,
Good.
you know, and so just one chance to get him off the chemicals and start a new life in recovery,
Dude.
you know, and so, but, you know, as we grow our brand, we're going to have some more specific things that we put the money towards, if it's a foundation or whatnot, but you know, those kind of things. But right now it's just, we're just having fun and we're doing this, you know, we're talking to each other, and this is beautiful. So
it is.
So,
all right, brother, I'm good. Unless you got something else you want to get out there.
I appreciate you for what you're doing.
Thanks,
you know, it takes a lot. We started a podcast last year during COVID when things happened, and we did 2 episodes. And so guys like you that are consistent and give people the opportunity to connect is amazing. And so I thank you for what you're doing as well. You know, it takes all of us, you know, so commend you for that. And I appreciate you letting me come on and wanting to listen to me talk. So appreciate it, man.
Good stuff. All right. We'll get back on here soon.
Okay. Shoot me your address. I'll send you a shirt.
Awesome. We'll do. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please do me a favor. Log on to consequenceofhabit.com, hit subscribe. I have some social media. You guys want to check it out. I need some help. I need a social media marketing person to maybe reach out, because, man, I'm struggling with it. But I'm not struggling at recording podcasts. So with that said, I'll catch you guys next week.